Wake up, you're not as smart as you think. Let's get one thing clear. Being intelligent does not protect you from making stupid decisions. In fact, the more intelligent you are, the more likely you are to make catastrophic ones. Why? Because you think you're too smart to fail. You believe your logic is flawless, your instincts are sharp, and your experience is enough. But here's the harsh truth. Intelligence without self-awareness is just ego in disguise. Look around. How many brilliant men have destroyed their careers, their marriages, their reputations? Not because they were fools, but because they refused to challenge their own assumptions. Men, this is where many of you lose your power. You cling to being right instead of doing what's wise. You ignore red flags because your intellect convinces you that you've got it under control. But you don't. Do you remember Icarus, the Greek myth? He flew too close to the sun because he thought he could handle the heat. That's you, wings made of wax, flapping with confidence, heading straight into ruin. This series is your intervention. I'm not here to coddle you. I'm here to make sure you wake up. Because the world doesn't care how smart you think you are. It only responds to the results of your decisions. So if you're ready to stop letting your mind betray your life, listen closely. We're about to dissect the root of your poor choices and show you exactly how to reclaim your strength. This is the Hawthorne Mind, and I'm Professor Alistair Hawthorne. Let's begin. 1. The ego trap. When confidence turns to arrogance. The first reason smart people make stupid decisions. Ego. You don't want to admit it, but your intelligence has become your prison. You've built a fortress around your mind, where every new idea is judged, dismissed, or ignored if it doesn't flatter your sense of superiority. You think you're being rational, but what you're really doing is protecting your ego, and that makes you blind. Let's talk about the fall of Napoleon Bonaparte. Brilliant military strategist, outsmarted entire empires. But what brought him down? Not lack of intellect, arrogance. He believed he was untouchable, so he marched into Russia with 600,000 men and limped out with barely 100,000. The cold didn't kill him, his ego did. You might not be crossing Siberia, but you're doing the same thing every time you overestimate your ability, ignore advice, or double down on a bad call because you can't stomach being wrong. Watch the movie Whiplash. The prodigy drummer, Andrew, is obsessed with being the best, but his ego nearly destroys him. He's not chasing greatness. He's trying to prove he's superior. That's not strength. That's insecurity with a high IQ. If you want to stop making dumb decisions, you have to punch your ego in the face. Learn to ask, is this the best decision, or just the one that makes me feel smart? Here's the truth. Men who protect their pride more than their progress always lose. Ego isn't confidence. It's cowardice in disguise. Strip it down, and you'll start to see clearly. 2. Analysis. Paralysis. When overthinking becomes self-sabotage, you think you're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. But here's the problem. You're not making moves. You're just thinking about them. Welcome to the trap of overanalysis, where smart people convince themselves that doing nothing is safer than risking being wrong. Let's not sugarcoat it. Indecision is weakness, dressed in intellectual robes. You drown in hypotheticals. You wait for perfect information. You delay. And while you're sitting there, polishing your brilliant strategy, life passes you by. Let me remind you of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. A genius, no doubt. But after the war, when the world looked to him for moral clarity, he hesitated, he pondered, he spiraled in regret. Meanwhile, others seized power and wrote history. Oppenheimer thought deeply, but failed to act decisively. And in the movie The Dark Knight, Harvey Dent is a perfect case. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Dent tried to think his way through chaos, but when the time came to act, he crumbled, because thinking without decisiveness breeds destruction. You see, intelligence becomes a curse when it paralyzes you. So here's your wake-up call. Smart men who hesitate lose to bold men who move every time. Stop analyzing your way into weakness. Take the shot, make the decision, be wrong, then learn. The world rewards action, not theory. 3. Analysis paralysis. When intelligence becomes a straitjacket, you know what smart people are really good at? Thinking. And you know what they're terrible at? Deciding. You've been trained to believe that more information leads to better outcomes. But that's a lie. There comes a point where thinking turns into hiding, where you're not planning, you're procrastinating, not preparing, but avoiding. You know who understood this perfectly? Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Commander of Allied Forces in World War II. He didn't have the luxury of thinking about it. He had to make calls that determined the fate of millions. His method: gather the necessary intel, but decide. Deliberate, then act. Now look at you. 6 tabs open, 5 books half read, 3 podcasts queued. You're drowning in data and calling it wisdom. But you're not moving. You're stuck in your head, terrified of making the wrong call. So you make none. Watch The Social Network. Zuckerberg wasn't the smartest coder, but he moved. He made decisions, ruthless ones. And while others were hesitating, he was building. That's why he won. Smart men fall into analysis paralysis because they mistake certainty for control. Let me tell you something hard. You'll never have enough certainty. Life doesn't wait for your perfect answer. Power doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from knowing enough and then having the guts to act. Stop hiding behind your intelligence. Start making decisions before the window closes and someone braver takes the life you wanted. 4. Emotional blind spots. When logic ignores the storm inside. Smart men love logic. It makes them feel in control, rational, superior. But here's your blind spot. Your emotions are making your decisions. You're just too proud to admit it. You think because you can explain your choices with fancy words and cold logic that you're above emotion. But what's really driving you? Fear of failure, need for approval, resentment, pride. Even the great Marcus Aurelius, yes, the Stoic emperor, knew that unchecked emotion is the enemy of reason. That's why he wrote Meditations, not for others, for himself, to master the chaos inside before it poisoned the empire outside. You, on the other hand, keep pretending you're fine while your decisions reek of desperation and ego. Watch The Godfather, Part 3. Michael Corleone wants to go legit. Clean empire, clean name. But deep down, he's still ruled by guilt, rage, and the ghost of past decisions. His logical plans collapse under the weight of emotions he refuses to face. You can rationalize anything when you're not honest about what you're really feeling. How many business deals have you chased to prove you're not a failure? How many relationships have you stayed in because you feared being alone? That's not intelligence. That's emotional cowardice with a spreadsheet. Here's the truth. Until you get brutally honest about your emotional drivers, your intellect is just a mask. And behind it, a scared boy pretending to be a man. Power isn't suppressing emotion. It's understanding it, then choosing not to let it control you. -5. The illusion of control. Why you're playing a rigged game. Smart men love control. It makes them feel powerful, strategic, safe. But here's what they don't realize. The more they try to control everything, the more they lose control of themselves. Let me remind you of Ozymandias, the legendary king in Shelley's poem. He built monuments to his greatness, carved his name into the desert, convinced his empire would last forever. But what remains now? A shattered statue in dust. That's the fate of every man who thinks control equals immortality. You micromanage your life, your business, your relationships, thinking if you just plan enough, predict enough, Tighten your grip enough, nothing will go wrong. But life is wrong. It's chaos. And no amount of brilliance can cage it. Watch Jurassic Park. Dr. John Hammond was a visionary, a genius. He thought science and security systems would keep his creation under control. But nature doesn't care about your spreadsheets. One power outage, and everything fell apart. That's you, trying to tame the wild with intellect. Let me make this clear. The smartest men adapt. They don't try to dominate. You don't need to predict the storm. You need to become the kind of man who can walk through it without losing his core. If your mind is only strong when the conditions are perfect, you're not smart. You're fragile. Let go of the illusion. Control isn't power. Resilience is. 6. Overthinking integrity. When justification kills your character. Let's talk about something most smart men bury beneath excuses: integrity. Not the watered-down version you post on your LinkedIn bio, but the real thing, the kind that costs you something, the kind that holds the line when no one's watching. Here's the problem with intelligent people. They're masters at rationalizing. You can twist any decision, any betrayal, any shortcut into something reasonable. You cheat because she wasn't meeting your needs. You lie because the truth would have hurt more. You backstab because it's just business. You're not logical. You're just morally lazy. History gives us Benedict Arnold, a once honored general in the American Revolution. Brilliant, bold, respected. But the moment his ego wasn't fed, he turned traitor. Why? He justified it, said he deserved more, claimed betrayal by others. But let's be clear, his legacy is rot. His name is synonymous with disloyalty. Because no matter how smart you are, if you lose your integrity, you lose everything. Now contrast that with Captain America in The Winter Soldier. The system turns on him. The world labels him a criminal, but he refuses to abandon his principles, even when it would have been easier, smarter, safer. That's what power looks like. Here's your wake-up call. Intelligence without honor is manipulation. And every time you sacrifice your values to serve your ego, you're not being clever. You're building a hollow empire, one storm, and it will all collapse. Smart men fall when they think they're too sharp for morality. But the strongest men, they draw the line and never cross it, no matter how tempting the shortcut. That's real strength. That's real power. 7. Chasing validation. When your intelligence becomes a performance. Let's rip the mask off. You're not building, leading, or achieving because of some noble inner drive. You're doing it to be seen. Too many intelligent men are not living. They're performing. Every decision is calculated for applause. Every achievement is a cry for recognition. You're not chasing purpose. You're chasing permission to matter. Let's take a hard look at Howard Hughes, one of the smartest minds of his time. Innovator, pilot, visionary. But underneath it, an insecure man obsessed with how the world perceived him. The result? Genius wasted in isolation and paranoia. Or look at Tony Stark in Iron Man 2. Wealthy, brilliant, admired, but self-destructing. Not because he lacked intellect, but because he was feeding off attention instead of authenticity. Here's what you need to hear. If your identity depends on being the smartest man in the room, then you're not a man, you're a puppet. And everyone's pulling your strings with praise. Validation is a drug. The more you get, the more you need. And eventually, you'll sell your values, your focus, even your sanity just to keep the spotlight. You want to stop making stupid decisions? Then stop making decisions for other people's approval. Start living like no one's watching. Real power isn't flashy. It's quiet. It's firm. It doesn't need applause to exist. If you truly believe in your path, walk it alone, and let your results speak louder than your performance. 8. Reclaiming power. Make the damn decision and own it. If you've made it this far, then let me speak directly to the man underneath all the excuses. You've been lied to. You were told that being smart would be enough, that intelligence would shield you from failure, heartbreak, regret. But look at your life. Look at the wasted time, the indecision, the people you hurt, the chances you missed because you were too afraid to be wrong, too proud to listen, too addicted to feeling superior. Let me be blunt. Intelligence without courage is a liability. It gives you the tools to build, but not the guts to act. And while you've been sitting on the fence, men with less knowledge and more conviction have taken everything you wanted: your influence, your woman, your peace. History doesn't remember the smartest, it remembers the bold. Alexander the Great wasn't the wisest man alive. He just made the call, over and over. While philosophers debated, he conquered. Here's what separates smart losers from smart leaders: decisive ownership. No more blaming your past. No more waiting for certainty. No more hiding behind books, ideas, or endless what ifs. Make the damn decision. Own it. If it fails, learn. If it wins, build. Either way, you move. And if you're truly ready to rise, not just in knowledge, but in power, then this is your moment. You've been called out. Now stand up. This is the Hawthorne Mind, where excuses die and intellect is sharpened by fire. I'm Professor Alastair Hawthorne. If this series woke something in you, subscribe, because this is just the beginning. Your power is waiting. Go take it.